before we talk about that 800-pound gorilla, before we talk about the 800-pound gorilla, which is what's going on in the Middle East right now,
Right.
what is your take on the political system? Because the whole world is watching America, the so-called beacon of freedom and democracy, the so-called beacon of liberty and justice, and the dictator to everybody else of what um, uh, democracy should be. And we see a system that looks like a clown show or a circus.
I would not disagree with that description. Um, at the risk of boring you with a sweep of history, let me just say that this is what imperial regimes do. This is what empires do when they come to their end. This is what happens to them: overspending, overextension, particularly military overextension, and just the weaning of pride, if you will, and trying to make sure that what they see around them, which is inevitably that we are losing power every day, doesn't happen. And so you reinforce failure and you double down, you triple down. And that's what we're doing. And you have a choice here now. If you look back on history at the thousands of empires in the last 5,000 years, and I do mean that, if you look at some of the history that really extends itself out into the east, to China, to Persia, to the Roman Empire, Eastern and Western, then you understand there have been empires all over history, and they've all disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them, including the one that the sun never set upon, the British, which disappeared for good in 56, but started in 1914. That's what we're doing right now. We're starting our 1914 and moving towards our 1956, and we're disappearing. And the rest of the world understands it. The rest of the world, led by the BRICS now, and the BRICS is much bigger than BRIC, led by that movement and by a general multipolarity in the world now, is defying our single pole power. And we're desperately trying to stop that. Gaza, Ukraine, and a host of other places that are of lesser attention in the media are indications of that. And we will never be able to stop it. But in our desperation, we have something that no other civilization, no other empire in history has ever had: nuclear weapons. So we can commit suicide as an empire and take the rest of the world with us. And that's a very dangerous prospect.
And I believe that that's what is happening. I believe that they're trying to hold the world hostage to maintain their empire. My mom used to say, "If you're in a hole, stop digging." And
Yes.
and it seems like they just get the bulldozer and they're just digging more and more and more. And in a time when America's economy is faltering, there's a culture divide, there's a ethnic divide, there's strife everywhere, I mean, just divides everywhere, gulfs everywhere across America. It seems to me that the rational thing to do is to not antagonize people who can help cushion your fall when you completely crash out. But it seems like the leadership is saying, okay, forget that. I'm going to antagonize everybody and I'm going to alienate friends and foes alike to try to maintain my position. To me, that is a non-starter. That's to me, that's insanity. What do you think about that? Because it seems like this is the policy that the American leadership and the British leadership has. Let's antagonize everybody. Let's provoke everybody instead of looking at the position of, hey, if I humble myself and atone for some of the things that I've done, maybe as I fall, other nations will have sympathy and empathy for me, and maybe that will cushion my fall a little bit.
Well, you're describing what I've written about and talked about to a great extent, and that is that we need to find a glide slope off this incredible neoconservative design path we're on right now, which is defy the world, and principally to defy it with our military instrument and sanctions. Do you know that we now have, according to the Office of Financial Assets Control in the Treasury, we now have about a third of the world under sanctions?
Wow.
I mean, and some of these sanctions are horrible. They don't do anything like what we want them to do, hurt those leaders that we're opposed to. They hurt the people. whom the leaders are oppressing in most cases themselves, or at least aren't leading very well. So you remember the days in Iraq when we had sanctions on Iraq and we killed 500,000 Iraqi children over a decade plus, and Madeleine Albright was asked about it, and she said, well, that's the price, and I'm willing to pay it. That's the kind of people that we have in charge now.